I recently turned 40, and there are three mistakes I've made over the last couple of decades that I would change if I could go back. These money mistakes have cost me over $100,000. I'm going to break down what these money mistakes were and stick around to the end where I'm going to share what I do differently now to combat those mistakes I made in my earlier years. Number one was I was afraid to take big actions. I have learned that I am a fearful type of person, and I have a hesitancy when it comes to actually making a decision. Case in point, I'm going to visit my sister very soon, and I've been looking for a hotel to stay in. I get so paralyzed just from making the decision. I am over researching and looking at all these different hotels and reading through too many reviews, and then I can't even make a decision because then I'm thinking, oh, is this one too expensive? Is this one not expensive enough? So it's going to be in a rough neighborhood. Is this a safe one? Is it going to be clean? Is it going to have a nice bathroom? And so forth and so on. I get into my head and I don't take these big actions. And one of the big actions I wish I would have taken when I was younger was to invest more in Apple stock. I remember my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, was like, hey, I think you should invest in Apple. And I was afraid. I thought the amount I was investing was too much. It cost too much. At the time, Apple stock was $200 per share. And so I did a little thing. I took $400 and I bought 2 shares of Apple stock, 2 shares. And then I didn't invest anymore. I didn't go back and invest more the next month. I didn't do any type of dollar cost averaging, as you may have heard of. If you haven't, dollar cost averaging is just when you are consistently inputting money into the market to invest. But I did not invest any more than that $400 that I invested buying those 2 Apple stocks. And then 10 years later, I looked at what results did I get from investing that $400. That $400 turned into $10,000. Like, y'all, imagine if I would have had the audacity, if I would have had the gumption to invest more into Apple back when I did that first $400 investment into this Apple stock. Listen, I would be so much farther ahead if I had just not been so resistant to this input that I was getting from somebody of like, hey, you might want to do this, you might want to try it out, if I wouldn't have been afraid. Now, obviously, this could have gone one of 2 ways. It could have gone the opposite way, because let me tell you something else that happened is that back when I was in my early 20s, I also invested in JCPenney because listen, well, we don't need to go into that story today, but that didn't turn out the same way that the Apple did. So yes, I do wish that I would have invested a little bit more into Apple, but let's not get all crazy with it. I still would also put most of my investments into an index fund back when I was in my early 20s and 30s. But there are definitely some things that I look back on and I'm like, oh, I wish I would have not been afraid to take bigger actions. And that takes me to my second one, which is I wish I would have invested more into my Roth IRA and into my 403b back when I first started investing. When I was investing into the 403b, I set it up and I invested 5%. And the financial advisor that I worked with, he was pushing me and highly encouraging me to do 10%. He kept saying it's not going to change your paycheck very much. I really think you should do it. And I was very afraid. I was very resistant. I just couldn't make that leap to that 10%. Or it took me a little bit of time. I know it took me at least a year, maybe 2 of him convincing me every time that we meet of saying, hey, I think you should do 10%. So I wish I would have started to invest that 10% into my 403b from the beginning. And with the Roth IRA, I never invested consistently into it. I invested some money into that Roth IRA, which has grown for me over the years, but I wish I would have invested more, especially because now as my household income has grown, the ability to invest into a Roth IRA is just a little bit harder. Yes, I can still do it, but because of where our income sits today, I would have to do a backdoor Roth IRA, which is going to take a little bit of work on my part to actually make it happen. So if I could go back, I would set it up to where I was automatically contributing into that Roth IRA at least $200 every month. I feel like I'm thinking back to myself in my 20s and the amount of money that I had in my savings account, and I'm thinking I definitely could have done $200. I just had this fear of not ever having enough in my savings. I had this fear of investing into the market. And so I wish I could go back and do that. And yes, hindsight is 2020, but the thing about it is when you look at the historical information about the stock market and how it's performed over the last 100 years, it has actually performed very well, giving an average of 7 to 10% back, depending on how you're looking at it. When it comes to the returns, if you are comparing to like the S&P 500, that has given back 7 to 10% over the last 100 years that the stock market has been around. So the data is not just from the short amount of time of the years that I missed out on investing, but if you take that big picture view, there's a lot of history that shows the stock market has done well. Hopefully it will continue to perform well. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen, and the past does not guarantee that the future is going to be the same or that it's going to be the same success. So there's also that. But that is still a mistake of mine that I would change if I could go back. Before I go on to number 3, hey, I'm Natasha. I'm a money coach. I help people to save their first $5,000 and beyond, to pay off debt, and to work towards financial independence. My goal is to help at least 100 people a year to work towards that financial independence. If you're enjoying this video and if you're interested in any of that, be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Let's jump back in. And number 3, I didn't do my own research. I didn't ask the right questions. I didn't seek out resources. Thinking about this right now, I'm wondering, what was I thinking? Why didn't I pick up a book and read it? I remember knowing that I didn't know anything about investing. I remember working with a financial advisor. I remember this financial advisor encouraging me to invest the 10% into my 403b instead of just the 5% that I wanted to do. But I don't remember actually going and reading more about this stuff. I don't remember going to the library, picking up any books, searching out any blogs that specifically talked about investing. And I cannot for the life of me understand why I didn't do that. I don't know what was going through my head, but I wish I would have done some research earlier in my journey rather than later. I'm glad I found it when I did, but I wish I would have done some research earlier in my journey to help to put me farther along than where I was. I remember reading blogs about budgeting and things like that, which I'm like, I didn't even really need that so much. Like my budget was fine. I had money, I had savings, I was doing just fine. No, it wasn't the most organized way to budget, but that was not where I needed the most help. The priority for me should have been learning about what does it mean to invest? What is the stock market? What is a stock? What is a bond? What are all these different things? But I didn't even know the right questions to ask. And if I could, I would definitely do more research. Specifically, there are questions I would ask that advisor that I was working with. For instance, why should I invest 10%? Can you explain to me how this works? What does it mean to invest in the stock market? When you say this global index fund, what does that even mean? Can you help me understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it? And furthermore, are there any books or blogs you can suggest that I can read so that I could start to really internalize this and not be afraid to do what it is you're suggesting that I do, and so that I'm more well informed about my own personal finance situation? So what do I do differently to combat against those $100,000 mistakes that I've made? The first thing I do is I'm continuously learning. I am watching YouTube videos, I'm reading books, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm listening to audiobooks in order to increase my financial knowledge and to keep getting better, essentially. I think there's always so much more that we can learn. And so I'm always trying to learn, how do other people do it? What are other strategies out there? What don't I know that I need to know? And some of my favorite channels that I watch here on YouTube is Our Rich Journey, Your Rich Auntie, Rich and Regular. And honestly, Rich and Regular is one that I started with reading their blog many years ago. I don't watch as much their YouTube channel, but I did used to enjoy reading their blog back in the day. Our Rich Journey was one of the biggest catalysts for me. They are part of the FIRE movement, and they retired early in their 40s into Portugal. And they are a very inspirational couple. I love watching them. But those are some of the video channels that I like to watch here. Some of the books that have really made a huge impact for me is The Boglehead's Guide to Investing, The Simple Path to Wealth, and Automatic Millionaire. Those are some of the top ones that have been very influential in how I have made decisions when it comes to my own money journey. But there are so many different options out there. There are so many ways that you can learn. There are so many knowledgeable people that you can learn from. There are financial planners, financial professionals that are accountants, that are just in the financial industry. And then there are just the regular old people who have done it themselves, done the research themselves, and are just sharing their journey and sharing the things that they've learned to help people to get better. And so I'm continuously learning to combat those mistakes that I made in my earlier years. Also, now I'm maxing out that 401k account. So with my husband, we started maxing out his account many years ago. So we continue to max that out. I've got automatic investments set up to go into the different accounts. I'm always looking to see, are we on track with where we want to be? Do we need to increase how much we are investing? I actually just recently increased it by a couple $100s a month recently. So I'm just always being aware of where are we within our money journey? How are we going to be looking in 5 or 10 years from now? Do we want to make any changes? Because I don't want our money to be a complete set it and forget it type thing. I want to make sure that I'm adjusting and making the best decisions based on what our current goals and priorities are and what our future goals and priorities are as well. So those are some of the things that I am doing now to combat against the mistakes that I made in my early 20s and 30s. I hope this video has been helpful. What are some of the different mistakes that you have made? What would you go back and change? If you've got one, go down in the comments and let me know. Or if you relate to any of the ones that I shared, please share that as well. I'm glad to have you here, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.